All right. Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. Finish Strong Friday. This is Brett Ethridge coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll go ahead and give it a minute to let some people hop on. I'm excited for what we're going to be talking about today. And the best part is I actually get to give a giveaway today. So make sure that you stick around all the way to the very end for some details about how you can win a cool prize. I'll get back to that in a moment. So I'm here on my farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I think it's relevant. I'm outside, so if there's a little bit of background noise, that's why. But beautiful day here, and if I'm squinting a little bit, it's because there's quite a bit of sunshine, and it's just great to be outside. In fact, I need to go do a little bit of gardening and weeding, and that plays right into what we're going to be talking about today with Finish Strong Friday. First, let me tell you a little bit kind of about my background, my story. I know some of you know me. Others of you who are newer to USANA might not know me and my wife, Melanie. We actually got our start in USANA 13, 14 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. I've been using the products forever. My mom, Brett Ethridge, Ruby director, introduced me to the products back when I was in college. I was a collegiate rower, but battled asthma and allergies, and she thought they were products that could help me while I was a rower in college, and they absolutely did. Loved the products and started to build a little bit of a business. Hi, Robin. How are you? And yeah, just, started the business kind of on my summer breaks when I was home from college. And when I graduated from Duke University, I went into the Peace Corps, and I actually lived in Africa for a couple of years and came back to a pile of paychecks waiting for me from USANA, work that I had done while I was overseas, or work that I had done before I left, had continued to pay me. And that was kind of my first introduction to this idea of residual income and really the power of network marketing and what the USANA business could do for me and my life. And so when I met my wife, we started grad school together in Denver, Colorado at the University of Denver, and we decided to get serious about our USANA business and built it up over about 15 months to a gold director business, and kind of the rest is history, as they say. You know, at that point, we were making enough money with USANA that we didn't have to go off and take traditional income, traditional jobs, because kind of the residual income we were earning from USANA was more than sufficient to not only meet our needs. It was frankly better than just about anything I could have gotten in the corporate world, even with my master's degree. And so we've had fun building the business. We're now Emerald directors, and USANA's afforded us a wonderful lifestyle to be able to travel around the world. We helped launch Colombia when Colombia opened a few years ago. We actually moved down there and lived in Bogota and then Medellin and Cartagena for a couple of years, and that's wonderful. And here we are back in Knoxville, Tennessee, with two little boys who love the USANimals, and they're healthy. They're healthy USANA kids, and we couldn't be more pleased. But I wanted to share a few thoughts with you, just kind of about what we've learned on our journey, and specifically with the idea, obviously, of finishing strong. That's what we're talking about today. Is Finish Strong Friday. And my pastor actually said something a couple of weeks ago in one of his sermons that kind of struck me. It struck me as, I'm not sure, do I agree with that? That's kind of a weird statement. And he went on to talk about it kind of more in the spiritual kind of realm. But I've been meditating on it and thinking about it from a business standpoint, and I think he was absolutely right. And he was talking about planting and harvesting, and he said something to the effect of, there's a lot of work to do in terms of the planting and weeding and stuff like that, but the harvest is the hardest part. The harvest is the hardest part. I thought to myself, that doesn't make sense. Like, isn't the planting and tilling of the ground and weeding and constantly watering and checking on your garden, like, isn't that the hard part? And he was saying anybody can do that stuff. Yeah, it takes work. It's hard work, but the hard part is the harvest. And the reason is because when it is time to harvest, it is time to harvest. There's a fairly narrow window when it's time to harvest all of that hard work. And my great uncle actually lived on a farm, and we would go visit him on his farm, and he would tell stories about when it's harvest time, the whole community would come together, right? You would help other people in their fields because you have to get the crop up, otherwise it's literally going to rot on the vine. And so you have a narrow window within which to do that. You can't afford to get sick. You can't, you got to get out there and you have to do the harvest. And he said, anybody can do the first parts, but not everybody harvests well. Not everybody has the commitment, the determination, the organization. Not everybody is able to harvest well. And I wanted to share that with you because I think it's so true in our USANA business. And it really hit home for me because that's exactly what happened to us this year, right? This is, so my wife and I live here. In fact, I'll kind of show you our garden really quickly. Let me spin this around. Spin this around a little bit. So you can kind of see it over in the distance there. You see like the tall sunflower seeds we have going on. There's our barn, and kind of in the back kind of corner there is our garden. Let me flip this around again. But what you probably couldn't see, it might look good. I don't know if that looked good or not to you. But what happened is our garden got absolutely out of control this year. Absolutely out of control. My wife's a really good gardener. We have a garden every year. We like the fresh produce. We like to know that it's organic and that, we know exactly we're not putting pesticides and chemicals and stuff on it. And so tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchini and, we planted some pumpkins and watermelon and the whole deal, right? And so my wife especially works really, really hard on it. I get down there and help her, and I was tilling up the ground and planting and doing all this stuff. And a kind of a confluence of events happened this year where right when it was finally time for the harvest to come in, right? Things are growing, things are looking good, we're keeping it nice and clean. Two things happened. One, we went to the beach for a week, right? Our annual beach trip happened to be in June this year. Instead of, we usually do it in late July or August. And so we went to the beach during a crucial week for when the harvest was finally kind of coming in. Lots of, fruit and vegetables were coming in during the week that we were gone. So we got back and I was like, oh my gosh, this garden is absolutely out of control. It's amazing how much can get out of control in even just 1 week. And then the second thing is, some of you may have seen the announcement yesterday, my wife is pregnant. So she got pregnant and she hasn't been able to get down there as much. She hasn't been, working on it quite as much. And so, it just, it is what it is. But for whatever the reasons, this year, our harvest, we didn't do a very good job with it. And it really hit home to me that, it is easy to do the first parts, but the harvest can be difficult, especially if things happen in your life. And what happened is literally we have tomatoes rotting on the vines. We have cucumbers and stuff like that kind of rotting. Hold on. I'm being told that it's sideways. All right, let me do this. All right, I'll just hold it up like this then. All right, hopefully that's better. So sorry about that if I was sideways on the video. I thought it would rotate. Here's my point. We have a lot of stuff rotting on the vine, and it just wasn't a great harvest. But there are 3 takeaways from this, right? So that's kind of a lot of explanation and story and so forth. But I think there are really 3 practical applications to this concept that when I think back on my own USANA journey, when I think about where I am now in my USANA business, when I think about business in general, and apply it to this analogy of the harvest. Obviously, the harvest can be hard, but it's also the most important part, isn't it? Like, we don't till up the ground and we don't put in the blood, sweat, and tears and weed and water and invest time, money, and effort to then have the vegetables rot on the vine. But I think so often in our USANA business we do. We do the hard work of approaching, of sowing, right? We sow into our prospects, we give samples, we host meetings, we get together with people. And then when it comes time to harvest, so many times we let the harvest just kind of rot on the vine. We don't follow through. We don't follow up. We don't stay consistent and persistent long enough. We go long stretches. Maybe we're afraid to ask for the sale. Maybe we're just disorganized and people fall through the cracks. Whatever the reasons are, the harvest can be the hardest part, and yet it's where really the fruit of the business comes from. It's where your business is going to grow from, right? So I have 3 tips for you, or 3 kind of strategies for you, and I'm going to tie it back into the giveaway, so definitely make sure to pay attention to these if you want a chance to win the prize that we're going to be giving away. We're actually going to be giving away a case of Rev 3. I got to choose what we were going to give away, and Rev 3 is near and dear to my heart. In fact, I've got my Rev 3 here. I wish I had a can. I actually just had my last can yesterday, so I need to get some more at convention, but I always have the stick packs. Love Rev 3. So I'm going to show you how you can have a chance to win a case of Rev 3. But here are the 3 tips related to this idea of the harvest. And the harvest can be hard, but it's still the most important part. And the first tip, kind of the first takeaway, is harvest what you can. Harvest what you can. So if you really are resonating to what I'm talking about and you feel like, oh my gosh, that's so true, I have not been doing a good job of harvesting. I have a lot of fruit rotting on the vine, so to speak. I have a lot of prospects in the pipeline, in the works, that I'm not following up with. They've fallen through the cracks. I'm not doing what I know I need to harvest the work that I've put in over the past weeks and months. Harvest what you can. So I got back from the beach, and even over the last few weeks, okay, fine. I just admitted our garden's gotten out of control. There's a lot of fruit rotting on the vine. But here's the other thing. There's a lot of good fruit there as well. And so I went down to the garden a couple weeks ago, and I picked all the good fruit that there is. I apologize, there's a plane going overhead. Let me pause. A little bit loud. It's one of the issues with doing it live. This really is live. I have an airplane going overhead. Sorry about that. All right, hopefully you can hear me again. I went down and I picked what I could, right? I had to weed past a lot of the tomatoes rotting on the vine, but I came back up to the house with an entire bag full of fresh tomatoes, a couple of cucumbers, a bunch of fresh peppers, huge zucchini, like zucchini that I'm not going to be able to slice up and saute. I actually made a big batch of cream of zucchini soup because it's just enormous cucumber or zucchini that I had to chop up into bits. The point is there was some good stuff there. Right? And I think that's true in our USANA businesses, that sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, it's totally out of control. I have to start over from scratch. But the reality is that there's probably some low-hanging fruit, some people you can go back to, some follow-ups you can make even today. Finish strong, right? Go out and let's pick that low-hanging fruit. Let's go back and harvest what you can. The second tip is to be organized. In our case, I can blame it on external circumstances, poor timing of our vacation, knowing that's kind of when our garden is going to be ready for the harvest. My wife got pregnant, like things happen in life. I get that. But a lot of times in our USANA businesses, the reason we're bad at harvest time is because we're not organized. I talk to people in my team all the time who, people are falling through the cracks, or I forget who I'm supposed to follow up with, or who have I already sent what information to, and so forth and so on. You have to get organized. When we were going Ruby Director, we were Gold Directors, and we were living in Denver, Colorado. I still remember, I have pictures of it, kind of our system when we were in massive action mode trying to go Ruby Director, right? And we actually literally stripped a wall of my wife's office and had a bunch of index cards, different colored index cards. And we had a whole column for kind of the pre-approach, and then a column for the approach, and then another column for the follow-up to the approach, and then a column for the presentation, and then a column for the follow-up to the presentation. And they were just kind of headings we put across the wall, and we would make a note card for every single prospect that we had in the works. And handwritten notes, what are their names, what's their contact information, and then as we moved them through the process, we would physically take their note card off the wall and move it over to the appropriate column, so that any given time we knew exactly where people were in the system. And again, it was color-coded based on kind of the different categories and the presentation. And then if and when they did end up joining our team, either as a customer or as a team member, then they would go into a new column and we would have a different process for that. But organization, and we could see it at a snap of a finger exactly what was going on. Today I use technology a little bit more. I use Evernote, but it's still a great system for me to be able to keep notes, set reminders, remind myself of conversations I've already had with people. And again, you can change reminder dates so that if you set a follow-up, it'll chime on your phone and you can call them right there from within your app. So there's lots of cool technology today. I still like old pen and paper. I like my old note card system. But whatever it is for you, let's get organized, right? Organization leads to a better harvest. If you're an actual farmer, like I talked about with my great uncle, they would have a calendar. Okay, whose farm are we helping to harvest today? And then when is it my turn for my neighbors to come help me with my harvest? Like, get organized with your team, get organized with yourself, and that will help you as well. And then the third tip is, if you've struggled with the harvest this year, right? It's not like, okay, this year kind of our harvest got out of control a little bit. We lost our garden. We didn't get as much produce as we wanted. I guess I'm never going to plant a garden again. Like, I give up, right? I'm I'm just going to start buying all my produce at the grocery store. It's just not worth it. No, of course that's not our mentality. Our mentality is, I'm going to get everything I can out of the garden this year, and I'm just going to try to do better next year. I'm going to try to be more organized next year. I'm going to try not to plan my family vacation during harvest time for the garden. I'm going to try for my wife not to be pregnant this time next year. Like whatever it is, I'll do better next year. And that means getting back on the horse. And for you, that means sowing again, because the only way there's going to be future harvest is if you sow now. My favorite audio track in, I think, all of network marketing is the Jim Rohn. He's got a whole CD, with a lot of tracks about how to create success in network marketing. And his track, I think it's track number 6 or 7, is the law of sowing and reaping, the law of sowing and the harvest. There is no harvest without new sowing. And so even if you feel like in your business, your harvest is out of control, you've lost a lot of prospects, tomatoes are rotting on the vine, that's okay, because guess what we can do? We can go plant new seeds. We can go sow again, right? So 3 tips for you. Let me tie it back as we kind of wrap this up. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. Just kind of with the analogy is obviously a good analogy for life, but definitely for our business. And here's how you can win your case of Rev 3. So, right, think about Rev 3. Rev 3, the number 3, 3 things. I gave you 3 tips. So here's all you have to do. Pick one of my 3 tips. So tip number 1 is to harvest what you can. Go out and make a follow-up call. Pick that low-hanging fruit. Who is in the works that you can make a follow-up with today? Maybe you gave a presentation earlier this week. Like, what's some low-hanging fruit you can go ahead and pick today that represents kind of the idea of harvest what you can today? That's kind of tip number 1. Tip number 2 is get organized. Maybe for you that really resonates because you don't really have a good organizational system in your business right now. Maybe you like my idea of Evernote. Maybe you like my idea of note cards. Maybe you can learn from other people on this call and who will post comments and ideas underneath, but figure out a system that's going to work with you so that you're better organized for the next harvest. And maybe again, you can salvage some of this season's harvest as well in your USANA business. And then the third tip, of course, is, okay, let's think forward to next year's harvest. And the beauty in USANA is the harvest period can be literally days. I remember, I have so many stories for you. I remember contests that I would be doing where I would literally make an approach on a Monday and I would have a 3 business center 3 days later, right? Sit down, give the presentation. A guy that I didn't even know because I ran into him at a restaurant, literally struck up a conversation, gave him a presentation later that night, sent him a video, and boom, 3 days later, he's in with 3 business centers. So the cycle of sowing to reaping to harvest doesn't have to be very long in your USANA business. So tip number 3 is let's start sowing for the next harvest. Maybe that's the one you pick. And all you need to do is share a comment in the comments below. Pick one of those three things, and then tell me about your experience. Tell me what you've done to get organized. Tell me about a follow-up that you make today. Tell me about something you've done to start to prepare for the next harvest. Any of those 3 things are fine. And what we'll do is we'll just draw a name at random from the people who kind of qualify. I'll give you 24 hours, and sometime tomorrow I'll go ahead and pick a name, and we'll organize and arrange to send you a free case of Rev 3. So there you go. I hope, again, you've found it helpful. I've enjoyed being on this. I'll look forward to chatting with you guys maybe a few more weeks or months. And I definitely hope to see you at convention. So if you see me walking around the convention center, please come up and say hello. Again, Brett Ethridge coming to you from Knoxville, Tennessee. Go out and have a wonderful USANA harvest. Take care, everyone.